Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my August reading wrap up. As you can see, I'm wearing a sweater and I have like Thanksgiving decorations up. It's no longer summer. When I joked about how my life right now is just constantly running late in my booktubeathon wrap up, it's continued to run late. And I had said in that video too, I'm like, I would imagine that things will go back to normal a couple weeks. Which is right around I was getting married. Like, it'll get back to normal then. No. I just got caught up in wedding stuff, and I also been working a ton of extra shifts. I've been trying to get a laptop, and so I finally got the laptop, but I still had to get like financial help for it, so I'm still going to be working a lot. Like I said in that video too, I'm like, I'm trying to get back to my 2-week schedule, but I'm probably going to be posting willy-nilly for a while, so I wish I could tell you I have a schedule, but I don't. Enough ranting, let's actually get into the video. So I did say this was an August reading wrap-up, but during August I did 2 readathons, Booktubeathon and the NEWTS Magical Readathon. I already did my Booktubeathon reading wrap-up, so I'm not going to talk about those books. In fact, a couple of those books are doubles for NEWTS. So when I get to those books, I'm just going to say, hey, this is the rating. If you want to know more about it, just see my Booktubeathon reading wrap-up. Yeah, this is mostly a NEWTS reading wrap-up. I don't know why I said August. Maybe to make things easier. So Booktubeathon was just for the first week of August, and the NEWTS was from August 1st all the way to the 30th. It was just a month-long readathon. And in order to participate in NEWTS, I had to have done the OWLs, which is what I did in July. OWLs got nothing on the NEWTS. When they said nastily exhausting wizarding tests, yeah, this readathon was actually pretty hard because there was like each section, like Ancient Ruins, Transfiguration, and then there was like 3 books in each section. So if you wanted to get O, which is the highest level, you had to read 3 books in that particular subject, which is a lot. It's a lot if you're trying to do multiple subjects, which I did. The subjects that you did for NEWTS wholly depended on what you completed for OWLs, and for the OWLs, I had completed Ancient Runes, Divination, Herbology, History of Magic, Muggle Studies, Potions, and Transfiguration. I can tell you right now that I got a T, which is Troll, which is the lowest score that you can get for both Ancient Runes and Divination. I just did not have time to even start those subjects. Oh, and I lied. I also got a T for Herbology. I didn't even do that either. So, we're gonna start. I have made terrible notes, so oh, I got a T in Potions too. See, I should keep better notes. All right, so let's actually get into this. So it seems the only subjects I even like attempted and completed are History of Magic, Muggle Studies, and Transfiguration. I'm very much a mood reader, and so there are a couple of subjects, not a couple, a lot of the subjects I just didn't even bother because I just wasn't in the mood to read those. So we're going to start with the lowest scoring one, which is Muggle Studies. That one I only read one thing, which is an acceptable. And for that, I read Friends with Boys with Faith Erin Hicks. This is actually one of the ones that I read for Booktubeathon. So this is just one of the ones that if you actually want to know more about, check out my Booktubeathon reading wrap-up. This was just a graphic novel about a girl who was homeschooled that ended up having to go to public school. And this was okay. I liked the majority of it. It's just it didn't wrap up very nicely. And so I actually rated this 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So the next subject that I actually completed is History of Magic. I actually did 2 levels for this. I got an acceptable and then exceeds expectations. In order to actually move up a letter grade, you actually, I know I've already said this, I'm just trying to make this clear to myself, not to you. So read 1 book for acceptable, read a 2nd book for exceeds expectations, and then if you want to know, you had to read a 3rd book. I actually read 2 books for this particular subject. The first one that I read for this subject is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. Margaret Rogerson. Again, I read this for a Booktubeathon. Again, I enjoyed this, but I didn't necessarily love it. I liked the premise of the book. It's basically this artist, she paints a picture of this fairy, and he doesn't like that she made him look human, and so he kidnaps her to make her like face charges for it, and it's a big deal because he's king of the fairies. and him looking human causes political upset. And during all of this, they fall in love. I thought it was really insta-lovey. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of that. Like I've said in previous videos, I prefer slow burn to my romances. I also didn't like how the main story wrapped up. Like you find out why all of this happened, and I didn't like that. I didn't think it necessarily made sense, especially since like I said in my Booktubeathon reading wrap up, it's set up in a way that it's meant to be a series when it's not. I'm pretty sure this is meant to be a standalone, so the pacing was just really weird. So in the end, I actually rated this 3 out of 5 stars. Again, I enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily love it. My coffee's getting cold because I keep losing focus, getting distracted. Squirrel! Haven't filmed in a while and you become a hot mess. And so the next thing that I read for this particular subject in order to get it in E is I'm pausing because I just realized I didn't really explain. So in each, these are my horrible notes, and each, in order to get an A, you have to read a certain prompt. And since I've already talked about Friends with Boys, I had to read a book written by one of my favorite authors. I love Faith Erin Hicks, which is why I read that. God, this video is going to be a hot mess. I'm sorry. And for A History of Magic, Enchantment of Ravens was supposed to be for a book that you would think would fit right into the Hogwarts library. Because it is a fantasy novel, I figured it'd fit right into the Hogwarts library, and it wouldn't necessarily be fiction. It might be actually, it could possibly be nonfiction, or just a fun, contemporary romance for them. Fast forward, back to where we are. E, and Exceeds Expectations. I had to read a book published at least 5 years ago for History of Magic. And so I chose Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. And I hope y'all will pretend that this video never happened, because this is just all over the place. We finally have something that I didn't read for Booktubeathon, so I can actually get into that particular book. This is actually a nonfiction book. This is just a memoir. She talks about her childhood all the way up to present day, or at least present day from when this book was published. And it was very funny. I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was really fun, listening to her tell her story. And when I say funny, I actually had giggle fits in public spaces. I'd be putting away books at work, having my earbuds in, and I would just giggle out of nowhere. And you see patrons kind of look, all confused at me. So it was very funny. At certain times, it did get a little cringy. She would talk about stories that involved her dad, and I was like, oh my god. Oh my god. And her humor also got cringy at times. Because I did listen to this as an audiobook, at every beginning of every chapter, she kind of sings the title, which was really funny at first, because she was completely tone deaf, and obviously it's meant to be on purpose. It's not meant to be taken very seriously, but it was funny for the first 5 chapters, and as the book progressed, I'm like, all right, joke's done. Can we stop now? Because when you're actually listening to this for a while, chapters sometimes get short, and then you're stuck listening to this for 4 or 5 times, oh my god. So yes, it was funny, but this is really bad, actually. Can we please stop? And also in the audiobook itself, there was some sound effects to go along with certain stories, and I just think there's an overuse of that. I didn't think that was actually necessary to this audiobook. So very funny, just cringy, and so I ended up rating this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So the last subject I completed was Transfiguration. This one I made sure to go all the way to the O, because this is McGonagall's subject, and I freaking love McGonagall. She's my absolute favorite teacher, my favorite character in the series, and obviously she is, I don't even know if you can actually see my tapestry, she is the head of Gryffindor. So to do her proud, I had to get an O in this subject. So I read 3 books. To get an A in this subject, I had to read a book with a gray cover, and so I read City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. I actually read this for Booktubeathon. This is a middle grade book that I believe is meant to be the first book in a series. It follows a girl named Cassie. Cassie, is that your name, honey? Yes, haha! See, this is why I should actually check Goodreads before I start filming. It is the start of a series. The story follows a girl named Cassidy that has the ability to see ghosts, and she's been trying to avoid ghosts But it's hard to avoid them when her family actually moves to Edinburgh, which is the city of ghosts. It's like completely haunted. And while she's in Edinburgh, she actually gets hunted down by a woman in red that's actually a ghost. So the story just follows her Cassidy trying to outwit this ghost. I wish the villain was more fleshed out. The story itself is very cute. I love the premise. I love Victoria Schwab's style of writing. Victoria Schwab is one of my favorite authors. I just wish the villain itself was more fleshed out. So in the end, I actually rated this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Now, in order to get an E in this subject, I had to read a book from an author I haven't read yet. And for that, I chose Save the Date by Morgan Matson. Did I read anything by her? Well, anyways, I chose Save the Date by Morgan Matson because I was like, oh, I've never read anything by Morgan Matson before, but I'm kind of just realizing that she wrote Amy and Roger's Epic Detour, and I did read that like 5 years ago. If you're new here, I have terrible memory. That's why I'm usually all over the place in my videos, and I have to have notes, and I didn't think of that, but this is what I did, and I'm counting it. Post-concussion syndrome is actually kind of funky sometimes. And I read this because I was getting married, and I wanted to read something on theme to that. So this story is about a girl named Charlie who, her family is very well known. Her mom writes a comic strip about the family, and around this time the comic strip is finally retiring. And also at the same time her older sister is getting married, and the older sister is trying to get married at the family house before the mom and the dad sells the house. So the wedding process kind of was rushed to begin with, but the day of the wedding, they find out that the wedding planner actually committed fraud and didn't do anything she was supposed to. And so the day of the wedding, they have to make sure everything goes according to plan, even though it wasn't really planned. And of course, that means things are going to go awry. I probably shouldn't have read this so close to my wedding because it gave me some serious anxiety. The writing style itself and the story definitely gave me some serious Hallmark movie vibes. I just think that a lot of what happened in the book seemed really forced because things are going awry. Different conflicts popped up, and I feel like some of these conflicts were just forced. Like our main character Charlie has a fight with her best friend, and I feel like that fight didn't have anything to like add to the actual story, and I just feel like it was forced and unnecessary. I also didn't like how Charlie had this issue with her brother. Her brother actually is estranged from the family, and he shows up to the wedding. And the reason why he's estranged is because he's mad that the mom added something to the comic, even after he had asked her, "Hey, don't do this." And so he's really upset, and he like keeps his distance. And then Charlie's really mad at him for doing that, and like, no. Everything about this is completely valid on the brother's part. So I didn't like how it was written. I was supposed to not like the brother when I was actually kind of on the brother's side. The story itself is more of like a 2-star kind of rating. I actually ended up giving the story 3 out of 5 stars instead of the 2 on Goodreads because our main character showed a lot of character growth. And so the last thing that I read for Transfiguration, to get an O in the book, I had to read a book that's set in a kingdom or has royals, and for that I chose Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. This is kind of, how do I want to say this? Yeah, it's basically a prequel to The Little Mermaid. And I was excited for that because I freaking loved The Little Mermaid growing up, and so I really wanted to read this. However, I actually thought this was a little disappointing. The pacing was really off in this. And again, this was another book that I listened to as an audiobook, and the villain to the story didn't get revealed until like towards the very end of the book, which is a long time to wait to actually find out what the conflict is. Like I see here that I wrote down, it didn't get revealed till the last 2 hours of an 8-hour audiobook. So 6 hours is a long time to freaking wait. And there wasn't any build up to this reveal. Like I knew there was something off about this particular character, but that's because like I had a gut instinct about it. There was like nothing in the story that kind of gave that away. And there was like this romance that happened in the book that I didn't care for. So for the 90% of the book, Evie, who's our main character, who actually ends up the Sea Witch, she is in love with a different boy. For like 90% of the book, she's in love with this boy. And then the last 10% of the book, it's actually revealed, no, I'm sorry, I was actually truly in love with you this entire time. And it's like, no. It just, I didn't like it. Evie as a main character has baffled the heck out of me. She insisted on trusting people that didn't actually show that they were worthy of trust. And it's just, especially with like her background in this kingdom, she has the ability to do magic in a kingdom that not only frowns upon magic, but like puts witches to death for magic. And so I just didn't understand why she trusted people that she didn't really know enough to trust. So that it is just why? So in the end, I actually rated this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So that is everything that I read for August for the NEWTS. Again, if you want to know more about what I read in August, check out my BookTube reading wrap up. This was a hot mess of a video. I didn't really plan this video. I have to go to work and I'm hoping to like just crank out as many videos as possible, so I didn't actually do any planning for these. So if you're still here after like not getting frustrated at me at the beginning of the video, thanks, that means a lot. And I can't believe that I just, in my mind, like, no, I haven't read anything by Morgan Matson. Memory is so funny sometimes. So feel free to talk about these books down in the comments below. As always, I just ask that you avoid spoilers. And to avoid ranting, I'm just going to go into my usual goodbye. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I guess it's ta-ta for now. Bye, guys!